Okay guys, so we've got a ton of stuff potentially coming at Apple's WWDC event this Monday. But only one of those things I think is really going to revolutionize the world. So before we get started, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you don't miss as we cover your favorite tech and video games. I'm Chris Grant Jr. It's the Grant Geek Show. Okay, so let's start off with hardware. We've got the iMac, we've got the Mac Mini, we've got the MacBook Pro 14 and 16 inch, and maybe even AirPods. I feel like they wanted to release the AirPods before this event, but they just ran out of time, so it's going to get chewed in with that. But yes, these are all the higher end versions of all the M1 devices that we've already seen, from the 24-inch iMac to the M1 Mac Mini to the 13-inch MacBook Pro. And this is why we need what will be called M1X, and I firmly believe that will be the name and not M2, as we've seen M2 chips being leaked in the new MacBook Air, and I think that will come next year with the next generation. I think the X variant is going to be for professionals, and the regular M variant is going to be for the lower tier stuff. This clearly makes a distinction between what is for consumers and what's for professionals. You have the lighter color palette for the consumers and the M series chips, and then you have the silver, space gray, black and white aesthetic for the pro level stuff with the X variant of each of those chips. So M2X will be coming next year. And M1X will be coming this year with all of these devices. Now, unfortunately for the iMac Pro, I think they're going to go with 27 inches instead of 32 inch, like had been previously rumored. And this is because they're basically giving away a free XDR display with every iMac. When you look at the fact that they were selling the 32 inch for $6,000 when you include the stand. So they're going to keep it on the 27 inch, and that will incentivize people to even go and get a second display, the 32 inch. But it's still going to be a great display. Plus, we had heard that there were issues that Apple was having in terms of getting that mini LED display that you have on the M1 iPad Pro and scaling that up to even the 14 and 16 inch MacBook Pro size. So I think definitely if they're trying to go with the new mini LED technology and the XDR displays cramming in so many dimming zones, they're going to go with a 27 inch instead of a 32 inch. Now, next up, I want to talk about software, and this is going to be your macOS, your tvOS, your home OS even potentially, and we'll talk about iOS and iPadOS a little bit later in the show. So starting off with macOS, we're in a very interesting time here because macOS 12 is coming. Who knows what national park they're going to name it? But here's the big thing. Apple is being faced with the decision to eventually cut out all Intel support. We'll know that macOS 12 was really built from the ground up to work with Apple Silicon. So it's going to run even faster and really push these devices to their maximum in terms of what they're capable of. But I would imagine that they're also thinking of what year it would be appropriate, macOS 13 or 14, to cut Intel support, as Apple doesn't seem to be going back in terms of what chipset that they're using in these devices. So I think that macOS 12 is going to lay the groundwork for them eventually not supporting Intel Macs. Apple is moving very fast when it comes to M1, even a year ago when they said that in the next 2 years, every device that they had would be moved to Apple Silicon. And I think they're going to do a very similar thing with macOS. It is going to be exclusively made for Apple Silicon in the next couple of years. So I would look for hints of that under the hood of macOS 12. And then as far as features and stuff like that, I think we're really going to see, the same type of features we're seeing in iOS. So updated messages, we'll get to that in a second, and a slew of other software features that we'll be getting on iOS and iPadOS as they start to seemingly reluctantly merge into one operating system. Speaking of messages, let's now talk about iOS and then iPadOS. Starting with UI and design, iOS is getting stale again. It's been the same amount of time since they moved from the skeuomorphic look to the flatter look with the pastels and stuff in iOS 7. It's been that same amount of time now. We're in iOS 14, okay, going to iOS 15. And we've basically had the same looking design for that same amount of time. It is time for a change, but I think that because people aren't being as vocal about it, Apple will be happy to just stick with what they've been doing. When Apple had that super skeuomorphic design back in the older iOS 6 and previous days, people were getting so tired of it that it was like the number one change that most people on most polls wanted to see changed in iOS. They said iOS works great, it does pretty much everything we would want it to do, but it doesn't look good anymore. It doesn't look fresh, doesn't look clean. And so iOS 7 came and changed that. We're starting to get the same issue. And it's not nearly as bad as it was back in iOS 6. it's still tolerable. And I think Apple knows that, so they're not really in a rush to change it. So we need to start putting the heat on them to change the look and feel of iOS from the iOS 7 aesthetic. But in terms of actual performance and things like that and features being changed, we have the notification overhaul. So customizable notifications for different times of the day and what you're doing. And then also having notifications on the home screen and having a redesigned home screen as well as notification lock screen. Those will be interesting enhancements and features, but nothing truly groundbreaking for iOS. Besides the messages overhaul. So we've seen this in the design language and the promotional material for this event. The like button, the hash flag of the hashtag on Twitter when you put WWDC is a like that you would see in iMessage. You also see memojis and the laser effect when you send a message in all the promotional material for this event. And I think this is because Apple is going to bring messages and present it as a social network, okay, to compete with the likes of Facebook and Twitter and Instagram and the like. And this is because, we've heard rumors for a while that internally Apple has been considering iMessage as an actual social network. So now you can change your profile picture and your name and have that, reiterate to all of your friends who are using iMessage. You can send special messages with all these, hearts and confetti and stuff like that. You can also play games right there on messages. So it would be interesting if they took this and, made it available for Android and iOS and just put it out to the world as the new social media platform. And I would actually be really on board with this, as many creators and YouTubers and people in general have been, because Apple has done such an incredible job lately in terms of privacy, just blowing every other company out of the water in terms of how they think about privacy, what their philosophy is behind protecting people's data and allowing them to control what kind of data is not only used about them, but even accessed. And so I think that this is something that is right up Apple's alley. I think people would jump on the opportunity to have a social network that had the privacy of an Apple device. I think that would be incredible. You share only what you want to share, no more, no less, no secrets, no shadiness. I think that even if that's not truly what we'll be getting, I think it'll be far and away better than the other offerings that we have from the likes of Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, you name it, every other social media platform right now. So I am looking forward to this, but is it revolutionary? Probably not. And none of the stuff that I talked about in this video thus far has had the potential in my mind to be revolutionary. They make what we do faster, but it doesn't necessarily change the way that we do things. And that, my friends, is where I get to iPadOS 15. Now, I love my M1 iPad Pro as it is. I've enjoyed creating every video that you've seen since a couple Fridays ago on this M1 iPad Pro. The software has been great. I've used LumaFusion and Pixelmator Pro. I've used Word and Pages and all those pro apps, as well as fun apps. The XDR display is incredible. And I did my review on the iPad. If you want to hear more of my full thoughts on how this device has been for me as a daily driver, this is my only computer right now. But this is all about to change in my mind. I've talked to tons of people, YouTubers, people in the know far more than I am, and they are very confident, and thus I am very confident that iPadOS is going to change the way that we view computers and what a computer can be. I've talked in the past about a device that could be a tablet, could be a phone, could be a laptop and a desktop, all in one, and what device was closest to doing that. And it's definitely the iPad. When you look at the tools and the accessories that have been released for the iPad Pro, from laptop cases to the Apple Pencil to draw on, to the fact that it can have LTE and be a cell phone, or use internet from a mobile carrier, and then its ability to dock and use now Thunderbolt in a desktop situation, full Thunderbolt, and have HDMI and external storage and audio interfaces and the like for real professional workflows. The iPad is far and away the most versatile device in the industry, and I'll stand by that. And all that it's needed for the longest time has been software. The software has not caught up, and iPadOS 15 is set to do that. I'm talking about Final Cut Pro. I'm talking about Logic. I'm talking about things like DaVinci, Premiere. We know that Adobe has kind of pioneered this space, announcing that they would release full-fledged Photoshop for iPad. And they did that, and they're adding more and more features to it as we speak, making it a fully capable Photoshop experience. And I think that they're going to do this with so many Pro apps now that the M1 chip is in the iPad. I think we weren't really getting it back with the A12 and the A12Z and all these chips that they were adding. They could have kept this on an A series chip. It could have been as powerful as the M1, okay? But they changed the name to M1 for a reason. It's that they want people to stop thinking about the iPad Pro as necessarily a consumer device. Pro is on the name for a reason, and it's about to get a whole lot pro-ier. And if this happens, if the software gets to a level where it can do anything that you could do on a desktop or a laptop, using macOS or Windows OS or any other OS, it will change the way that people work. I was in a Twitter space with some other creators, and we were talking about if an alien came to this world with no knowledge of laptops, desktops, and tablets and the like, and you blindfolded them and said, I have two devices for you. One of them has a keyboard input and a trackpad input with a display that you can do work on. And then you told them that another device was a single slate of metal and glass that had a touchscreen, but could also have the keyboard and trackpad like the previously mentioned device, but could also be docked as a desktop for a more stationary experience, and obviously could be used as a tablet. The alien 9 times out of 10 would probably pick the iPad. And I think that's naturally what people will begin to choose if software is unleashed on the iPad. Now, people talk about, oh, well, Apple doesn't want to cannibalize the MacBook Pro. They don't want to cannibalize it. They can't destroy their own products. They absolutely will, because if they don't, somebody else will. Many are already trying. You see those awful Microsoft commercials where they're comparing the Surface to the iPad Pro. They're trying to make that all-in-one device. A laptop that's as powerful as a desktop with a touchscreen. And Apple is the closest to doing this. And if and when they do this, it's going to change everything. The only thing that really sucks about the M1 iPad is there is no headphone jack, which is truly turning out in my eyes to be the most pro input that you could have. USB-C has been known to transfer data and charge and do all these different things. Card readers, even they're putting the card reader back. The headphone jack, and of course it can do audio as well, but the headphone jack, that dedicated audio jack, is just, it's irreplaceable. Anyway, guys, those are my thoughts on WWDC, which is right around the corner this Monday. Of course, I'll be going live with some of my friends on YouTube, so be sure to check that out. I'll put the link everywhere, basically. Be sure to follow me on Twitter, though, so you can get that link quickly, and we can keep the conversation going there. Of course, be sure to hit the subscribe button and click the bell so you get a notification on your device when I drop new videos. That's the best way to stay up to date with all the latest tech and video games. I'm Chris Grant Jr. It's the Granite Geek Show. Oh, also, let me know, do you agree with what I said? Hit me in the comments below. Granite Geek Show.